to the Exist Better YouTube channel. Today we are gonna get into more political stuff. I almost want to apologize immediately because I know some of you guys probably came here for the mental health stuff, but right now this is mental health stuff. So I'm gonna be doing a couple of videos on specific topics in the realm of politics. It's not really politics, this is about trauma, okay? So that is why I'm focusing. It might seem kind of random, like why are you suddenly all about politics? It's because this is a channel for shadow work and mental health. You know, the facilitation of better and better mental health. And so in light of that, it's kind of hard for me to ignore everything that's going on right now in the world. And as someone who lives in America and has a lot of experience studying this stuff, both independently and in an academic setting, frankly, most of what I've really learned that's of value was not in an academic setting about this stuff. But so generally what I'm trying to say here is right now in this country and in this world that we live in, no matter where you live, political stuff is actually mental health stuff. It's actually trauma stuff, and it's actually shadow stuff. So when we see a lot of polarization happening and a lot of extreme opinionated groups like extremism, when we see more and more of that, we're moving deeper and deeper into shadow and the avoidance of shadow, okay? So that is why I'm talking so much about politics on this channel recently, because it's really not politics. You know, we're not talking about like the fiscal budget here. We're talking about people being extremely triggered, extremely traumatized, extremely unwilling to look at it, and it's actually causing like, you know what it's causing. It's causing like massive upheaval everywhere you look. So the first thing I want to clear up, and this is something that I could not put my finger on for years now. And as usual, you know, a bunch of people are going to be offended, whatever. This is not really a channel for people who get extremely offended and are extremely combative. This is a channel for people who are more sensitive, more open-minded. As you know, if you're watching this, that's probably you. As you know from the title, we're talking about this Make America Great Again slogan. Now, this is an extremely divisive slogan. This is the interesting part about being alive right now, is that we have these slogans, these hashtags, these seemingly extremely benign Democratic and Republican slogans. They are so extremely divisive, and there's very good reason for that. It's not random at all. There's very particular reasons why these slogans are divisive, and it has everything to do with shadow, the individual's shadow. So we're just going to take the one today. Make America Great Again. Okay, so let's start with people's reactions to this slogan, because first we have to understand like the conscious side of it before we get into the subconscious side of it. We have conservatives who love this slogan. It is all about it encompasses their mindset perfectly, and I didn't really get it or know what this was about. To me, it seemed kind of just a silly, like empty saying. But I've come to learn that it really encompasses everything about conservatism. Individuals who identify as conservative, they have a particular mentality, which we're going to go into, and this slogan completely sums it up in a sentence. Okay, now liberals. This slogan for a liberal is extremely triggering. They hate it and they find it super, super offensive. Now, let's look at, this is very important. The liberal interpretation of Make America Great Again is conservatives want to go back to a time of segregation, slavery, maybe even, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, what else? Times when, women couldn't vote, all of this stuff. So when a liberal looks back in time, what they see is extreme oppression and inequality. And that is the lens through which liberals are seeing the past. Now, when a conservative looks back, they see the complete opposite in history. So they are literally aware of two different realities. So when a conservative looks back, and again, this has everything to do with your shadow, your individual shadow. When a conservative looks back, they see simplicity. They see a time where families were not getting as many, there was not as many divorces. There was not this high divorce rate, this high rate of, like single mothers, fathers leaving the family. What else? The economy was very stable. People had jobs for 40 years and everything was fine, and they worked that job, and then they retired and they got a pension or whatever. It was a very traditional, streamlined process to go to work. There was stability in the economy, so no one, or not no one, but fewer people were worried about how they were going to buy a house or how they were going to afford to have a child. Like, that wasn't really as much of a thing for a lot of people, say in the 50s, as it is now. So when conservatives look back, that's all they see. They see the absence of all of those things, and they say, that's when America was great. Now we have all these trends that are sort of disintegrating that Leave It to Beaver 1950s way of life. And the thing about that way of life is that it was simple, it was predictable, you didn't have to think. Everything was the same all of the time. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of instability for a lot of families. Finances were always the same. You get the same amount of money every week. Dad always went to work. He came home at the same time every day. So you see that consistency. So when liberals look at the slogan, "Make America Great Again," they believe, like I said, that conservatives are trying to go back to a time when there was more racism, more sexism, et cetera, all that stuff. What they actually aren't thinking about that at all. They're not even thinking about that stuff in general, to be honest. Like, it's not top of mind for them. What's top of mind for them is stability, like keeping things together, keeping things going. Stability and safety is like everything for the conservative. So let's get into the main point of this video. So, make America great again. The true desire behind that slogan is not a group of people who want to return to racism and slavery and that kind of stuff. If you really want to understand, and you are open-minded enough to understand where this is coming from, listen to this statement, okay? It's coming from a desire to not integrate pain. It's coming from a desire to want to suppress problems, negative emotions, and anything that would require any amount of shadow work, looking at your own negative emotions, essentially. That's what shadow work starts with. Avoidance of self-awareness goes hand in hand there. Total avoidance of self-awareness. So what they want to go back to, okay, again, this is important. Listen to this sentence. What they want to go back to is a time when suppression still worked. That's what they want. They want to go back to a time when suppressing your emotions still worked. That's all they want. So, and here's the problem. Okay, I'm going to spew a little bit of a, I don't know what you call this, maybe a little bit of a liberal perspective, but really this is just like a true fact of reality. There's only one direction you can go in. That's forward, right? As we all know. There really is no such thing as going back. You can't recreate what you used to have because you're a different person now than you were then. So there is no going back. And to a conservative, that means total, like, destruction and misery. Like, for a conservative to hear the phrase, there's no going back, we can't go back to that, we're never going back there, what they think that means is, you know, progressive liberals are going to destroy the world, basically. They think that if they can't go back to a time when emotional suppression worked and you could just stuff everything off into a corner and like, oh, those aren't problems, you know, there was never an episode of Leave It to Beaver where anyone had a genuine problem that was real, like a real, like, serious crisis. Because you just didn't even say that out loud. And you brushed it aside, and it sort of worked, right? It sort of worked. So so conservatives associate going forward with total chaos, destruction, hopelessness, etc., because they are so against integration work and shadow work. They don't even really know that that's a thing. Because, okay, for you guys who do shadow work, you've probably noticed that, or any sort of meditation, any sort of healing work, the first thing you're going to notice is that you feel worse before you feel better. So it's like you're trucking along, right? I feel like I mentioned this in a different video, but you're trucking along, you're suppressing, like everything's like, it's all right. You start doing your shadow work, you find out everything that's wrong. It's extremely overwhelming. You are like pulled down into the most deep, dark emotions you've ever experienced. And if you stay aware, if you stay open to that, you start to move out of them. And then you actually go past where you were, right? And then your new normal is higher than the old one, right? But you got to do the dip first. So that's the thing that for some reason most people won't talk about with healing work. Maybe because most people aren't doing real healing work. Maybe that's judgy. I don't know. But so yeah, so Make America Great Again comes from the unwillingness to do that dip into the shadow, into, like, you know, maybe we really are racist, maybe we really have been sexist, homophobic, maybe we really do have some major problems that need to be solved here. That would be like the shadow place societally. Like if society were to do shadow work, it would go down into that. And not just stay, and this is what conservatives think. They think it would just keep going down and down and down and down until society would destroy itself and just like implode in on itself. And so they think, well, instead of that, let's just reverse and go back to when things were going better. But they were only going better consciously. They weren't going any better subconsciously. So now we're at a point where we've avoided the subconscious, the shadow, for so long that it is just sort of blowing up in our faces, because that's what happens when you avoid shadow for so long. So what the interesting thing is that they don't see that old-fashioned Leave It to Beaver trajectory actually led us right to here where we are in this shadow implosion. It was that trajectory that led us here, right? A plus B equals C. So they want to go back, not recognizing that they would just go back and then they would end up here again, right? It would be a treadmill that keeps going back and forth, because you can't skip the shadow. You can't skip that stuff, okay? So the general statement here is that Make America Great Again comes from trauma and wounding and an unwillingness to integrate and go into the shadow because they think that it would literally destroy them. That's where that saying comes from. That is the true belief under there. You won't hear this anywhere else, because even people saying it don't know why they're saying it. And liberals especially don't know why they're saying it. So the next time you hear someone say Make America Great Again, know that they are scared to go into the shadow. They believe it will destroy us all, and they want to go back to when it was simpler, when they could just suppress things and it would work. That's what that is about. So you're looking not necessarily at a terrible, horrible person who loves racism and sexism and homophobia, but more likely you're looking at someone who is like a scared child and they're not handling it in a very mature way, is basically what you're really looking at if you were to, get that person down to their core. So that's what I wanted to say about that. I'm going to have a video coming out about liberalism, and it's going to be called Why I Graduated from Liberalism, and that's going to probably get me some unfollows. But this is something that's extremely important, and it's going to be a little bit more of like a story time video about myself and how and why, most importantly, why I moved out of liberalism. And no, I'm not a conservative. I'm not either. And I'm going to go into all that. So hopefully this helps you understand things a little better, even if you're not in America. Like I always say, I'm sure you can find the symbolism here for different groups of people in your country. And yeah, that is it. I will see you next time.